For some more 5D chess backlash, this is Melissa Cody Prater, your fearless tour guide through hell. Humanity may never be the same after this one. I'm letting the dragons out today. This presentation continues the Egg-Gnosis series as part 12, titled Dragon Babble OU Promotional-Propaganda Therapy. For newbies, OU is short for over-unity, which is a scientific and mathematical principle of the universe that expands the universe and provides energy for it. This presentation is produced by Capetronics Dimensional Art, sponsored by WhoHub Humanitarian Software, which is a concept initiated and owned by Capetronics R&D Energy. Our art features AI-generated art using scientist Brian D. Prater's formula for over-unity, which is explained in more detail in the video for architectural over-unity artistic concepts, as well as part 3, Sex, War, and Florn. I would like to add that most all of the actual artwork herein is produced by me, except for the animated GIF images, which were freely downloadable from various sites. So with that said, passengers, fasten your seat belts, get comfortable, and you may want to turn on the cool air conditioning because this episode is hot. Get ready to take flight. This highly energetic episode is special because it opens the number 12, of which number itself, its foundation of sets and its expansion points also represent God's angels and WhoHub's angels. From a Western perspective, dragons have a bad reputation. To address this issue, the introduction is extended as a description of dragon propaganda and self-care, which offers vital data on demand. Then we dive deep into the flames of speech and universal language, and come back up for some air for topics about the business of WhoHub. After that, we're going back in time to cross it again and again as we look at the symbols from the first of two dreams I had about 9/11, that is. I believe that is impacting the world today even still. Lastly, as usual, we'll finish up with battle reports from the Dragon's Lair this time, which continues an even deeper dive into the strange world of quantum realities in this 5D chess adventure. If you're not already familiar with the Egg-Gnosis series, it features science, art, and WhoHub. In this series, we combine science and religion into what we call Egg-Gnosis. It's a cute name and we like it because it works well with over-unity, as you can see in Egg-Gnosis Part 3. The agenda for this presentation is thick with powerful information that merges religious and psychological ideas of the East with the West in a framework that can be used in WhoHub gaming environments. Due to the fact the information provided is mostly of my own accounts and spiritual experiences and research, I would not exactly recommend it to be implemented in the classrooms without a large body peer review, of course. I say that as a disclaimer because I do not intend to lead anyone astray. Rather, my purpose is to simply put the information out there for your consideration, and I hope it helps overcome some confusion in the media mix that has been ongoing for thousands of years through cultural and religious wars. Just like in politics, lying about the enemy or making up so-called facts about the unknown are common practice. In a world where we do not comprehend how the distribution of information occurs, things really get wild. And only with current technology are we able to see it and expose it on a grand scale. This series is based somewhat on the bent of my own life and the dreams and information I have been given over the last 23 plus years, which directly relates to today and current world news events. Let's begin. Let's start with some dragon propaganda. This is a brief overview of what is and what isn't according to the dragons, who are really cantankerous beings when ill-treated. Mistreatment of dragons is what causes the cities to burn and the villagers to flee in fear, according to the legends. Although, as you know by now, watching these videos, I don't always read everything on the screen, if ever. But I do want to point out a few things here. The first important point is that dragons are associated with the placement between chaos and matter. And in the text, it uses the words intermediate stage, which is a good way to describe this aspect of reality, and the struggle we have with the construct itself as it fights against us, as I have described in previous videos. The dragon is like the waters of creation, and its fiery breath is speech, like how God spoke the world into existence. The dragon does not carry the negative connotation in Eastern cultures like it does in Westernized religion, which is why, as you can read from the text at the end of the last paragraph, as the dragon concept moves from the east to the west, it loses its toes. The dragon loses its toes. In the similar way, Christianized dogma confuses the understanding of the spiritual serpent of which the human body gives its legs. To the right is Maslow's chart for a human's hierarchy of needs. The most basic needs are at the bottom as physiological needs or physical needs for survival, such as food, water, shelter, clothing, and healthcare. When humans have those needs met, their next concerns are typically for increased security to protect their creature comforts acquired, such as housing, food, and so on. So the second rung from the bottom is for safety needs. When applied to a nation, safety needs includes military, police, or legal protection, or even added security systems, gated community development, and cybersecurity protections. Moving up Maslow's chart, human priorities shift to social needs once their physical condition is securely maintained. Social needs are just as important to soul growth as the physiological and safety needs are important for the human body. Hub Humanitarian Software Concept fundamentally provides a platform to support the flow of communication between humans and promotes those social structures which feed our souls and minds. Once that layer of Maslow's chart is established, humans can then attain self-esteem, esteem among their peers, with those in active social structures that support them and their soul's journey. Eventually, if the support is available and the individual is willing to go through the hard work, and it is hard work, one can attain self-actualization, which sits at the top of the pyramid in the same spot as the all-seeing eye. Have you ever wondered why some fairy tales and King Arthur adventures focus on the princess held captive by a dragon? Those stories were sold to the general public as myths, but they have real psychological and real-world event importance. If you don't believe me, mark this video in the events that may shudder through the world after its publication date. However, the media, like the sirens from Homer's Odyssey, distort the real driving narrative and chop it into distributed bits of comms that usually only bots can decipher. The headlines appear like abstractive spin-off narratives of my life. For example, when I complain that disability income can't cover monthly bills with the current inflation, media headlines appear about the USA sending another $50 million to Ukraine, or millions of dollars are suddenly spent to find a lost homemade sub at the bottom of the ocean. It's as if they're all very confused about where I'm actually located. That may sound very funny, but from my perspective, the world appears to function in that manner. And that's where today's battle reports are leading to, which I will describe in more detail later in this presentation. The meat and potatoes of today's presentation centers around speech and universal language. The dragon symbolizes this aspect of fire as it is breathed over the waters of creation through the spoken word of God, from God, using, in this case, a human body as the vehicle transport of communication. God could use a donkey to do it, but the donkey may not be quite as talented with its delivery of information. Before I get started too deep, I'd like to say that there's going to be a whole lot of reading material that is posted in these slides throughout this presentation, which are from my former website, which is now defunct, for spiritofthetour.com. Rather than rewrite it all, I simply took screenshots of some key excerpts, which I will overview and highlight only a few points from in order to move through the density of this information much faster. Of course, you are free to stop the video and read the content provided, which is easier to view on a full-size monitor. As with all Cavetronics dimensional art, I do recommend a bigger screen because small cell phone displays do not do the work justice at all, in my opinion. Okay, to start on the subject of circumcision by fire, opening of the adept mouth, and the universal language. The more I talk, the more it unfolds. My speech is like fire. My body is the chalice, the divine feminine, the princess locked in a miserable castle, where the walls are tested and known only by a distinct communication breakdown in reality. It is in that manner, by testing and measuring these effects, that I learned how to maneuver through the miserable castle. And that is how I came to understand why Moses had to be circumcised, which happens on the 8th day after a son's birth as a newborn baby. Some occultists may associate this with the 8th sphere, but I will let the dark journalist on YouTube explain that topic in more detail. To continue, in some ways, Moses overlaps in symbolism with the Egyptian pharaoh Akhenaten, whose reign was monotheistic, and from what I can gather, symbolizes the idolatry of God in the human form, which is easy to do. It is a common practice for people to look up to others, like celebrities and authorities of various types. Moses himself had to struggle with this issue, being a part of two worlds simultaneously. As a Hebrew, Moses would otherwise have been a human body slave, but he was raised by Egyptian royalty, which placed him as a physical authoritative leader and gave him the knowledge needed to be a spiritual leader in a land full of magic. In a world run by black operatives, ascension into a leadership role would result in the ultimate takedown, like the incident with Akhenaten. But Moses was humble, and God needed him to liberate the Hebrew people from Egypt. So God made a way for that to happen in this magical realm, which is the reason for circumcision, to protect Moses from the sin of idolatry in advance. The action offered a little blood and pain to the evil inclination that demands it as payment. It looks like my eggs are boiling. It wasn't until last year until I realize I'm considered the enemy in this long 5D chess match. However, the media only discusses the dragon rather than the actual princess held captive. That may have been an endless problem if it weren't for the current abstraction, which now seems to allow my voice to be heard above the nonsense, in order for others to see what is actually happening, how and why. Otherwise, who in this modern world still believes in fairy tales? To babble on, Hub will be put together by many teams, but specifically agile team members are expected to be information radiators themselves, so that they bring new ideas to projects and keep things fresh always. Agile team members are first tested within a Hub gaming environment, and then chosen for their programming skills, creativity, ability, and willingness to work closely with our team and hold themselves to a higher standard. In such a structure, there are no leaders, but the product owner has final authority to approve or request edits to work for publication. From this slide, I think it is worth pointing out a relationship of bricks as a symbol mentioned in the account of Babylon with the current events involving the bricks economic system. There are some other points from this content which will be discussed later in this presentation. This is another page from spiritofthetor.com concerning the universal language, which I mentioned in the previous video. A few key aspects about the universal language that I believe to be true are that we use it in our communications through our voice, our speech, and songs, and that the vibrational sounds we make when we speak have encoded information extraneous to the actual words and their provided definitions. Also, before moving on, I would like to note that symbols are a type of universal language which can cross cultural barriers and language, especially when comprehended at their root, minus the dogma that often gets added as propaganda. The way I view the truth is like a needle in the haystack, where the needle is on the bottom and the hay demons pile on top to hide it. Speech is very powerful, especially when truth is spoken. In the last video, Egg-Gnosis Part 11, I talked about how myriads or choirs of angels are required to sing God's name appropriately. Yet many people try to do so from this lowly level, drenched in mortality with a mortal mind and mortal body. But someone got the bright idea to get a computer to do it instead. This account is at least third-hand information at best, but I trust the source immensely. According to the story, in the 1950s, a group of Buddhist monks attempted to generate 100 billion secret names of the Most Holy using an early computer which was flown into the region of Himalaya for the task, and a crew set the computer up and got it working. The strangeness happened on the return flight when the pilot witnessed the stars in the sky flashing off. Therefore, it may be useful to know that if the names of God are appropriately used in a quantum system, it could produce matrix glitches such as the extra long glimmer in the stars. Also, my records of dreams and notes show there seems to be a correlation between the year 2007 and the current time. This section about the business of Hub is somewhat of an assortment of topics to answer some questions that may be floating out there and illuminate some nuts and bolts to upcoming programmers. Note that in this presentation, I used a tagging system with the WhoHub logo on the slides that have specific company information that may be useful to programmers out there working on this software for the future. But remember, like I said in the last video, when we're all sitting down at the table together, feel free to pass the fruit. And you're welcome from on high. To complement this presentation's feature of dragons in speech, I would like to present more information about WhoHub's content delivery system and the human oversight structure and processes that involve programming teams. The content delivery system is responsible for the following, to include but not limited to: query results for the Ask WhoHub feature, real-time WhoHub updates, before and after statistics, RSS feeds, and reward system tracking. Plus, the WhoHub content delivery system works with the WhoHub core to send digital updates to WhoHub's NetHood of networked businesses and government agencies on all levels of participation, from local, city, county, state, federal, and so on, including all other special agencies in agreement with WhoHub and its bylaws written by the content delivery system and agreed upon by the people, the users of WhoHub, where one user equals one vote. And leadership is held within councils, not individuals, because there are too many diverse opinions to assist and consider. These councils could agree to run like agile teams and consist of 5, 7, or 9 members, always keeping an odd number of team members and using the placement of the product owner, which is a specific agile defined role, as a temporary stand-in if a team member is lost. Programmers will be responsible for ensuring the content of WhoHub, that it is outstanding and superior in quality for humanity, and it will be agreed upon on departmental levels and sent up the chain for approval, especially when it comes to laws. Laws will be simplified, understandable, and agreed upon. That's the agile way. These are obviously some older project reports, but at the rate of current pay, this is what you get. Call it truth in advertising. However, we do continue to progress, and since fall of last year, we have put a new website online, which is still under construction, but it has a PHP forum as a meeting place for people to promote their business or discuss alternative energy, science, technology, art, and a myriad of other topics. There is also a social media site portion and live chat room that are active. And under construction is a wiki knowledge portal and a store which will sell digital art from our own server rather than pay Etsy. Either way, we still have to pay or do our own advertising in our case. This epic slide is just a gentle reminder of what could have been. In 2012, we put the final piece of the puzzle in place for the humanitarian software concept, which structuralized itself with a feature that made it all snap together comprehensively, so that it would work despite the overwhelming obstacles we had to get over to solve the problems in our world. So we put an overview of our idea into the public back then, and this is some evidence to that, showing what the world could have had a decade ago, when we estimated it would cost about $400 million for WhoHub's software backbone. A colleague back then ran a simulation to estimate the return profit of this software concept, which came to be about $3 trillion annually. This is a snapshot of an old proposal that includes blockchain integration, but as I mentioned in the last video, we have and are going to use a better upgraded system than that. However, WhoHub could be flexible if blockchain is specifically needed for integration, but my team tells me that it is completely unnecessary. The details on this proposal excerpt are for WhoHub's backbone, which does not include necessarily the addition of the gaming environments or the beta testing for programmers as far as software is concerned. This is a list of some of the services of the basic WhoHub functions, not including the gaming environment and sales. These slides offer some duplicate information that you may have already seen in the first couple introductions to WhoHub from 2016 and another one to Tom McDonald a couple of years ago. I'm not sure if the actual rapper ever watched it though. It wasn't for lack of trying to get in touch with him with a great idea, but the reference to the video link that is shown on this slide under the WhoHub logo is the first of those videos mentioned, the one from 2016, which is located on my personal YouTube channel rather than this one for WhoHub Humanitarian Software 208. So to see that video, which has a lot of details, go to whohub.tech and it will be on the right hand side column of our website. WhoHub will perform research analysis on everything important to humanity's prioritized needs, and those polls will be distributed to users according to their closest relational hub or hub home, meaning their residential living area of their choosing based on either zip code, GPS, or some other measure of commonality that is simplified and easily integratable, of which measures may differ in various areas worldwide. This will give places a voice for the people that do not firmly have one established, and it will give an alternate platform of exposure and transparency to existing governments and offer communication between officials from the people without the usual interference channels, so that the people can talk to their government leaders using WhoHub's platform, which will be easy and user-friendly to use. We envision WhoHub polls for advertising as well. In another video, specifically for programming, I will delve deeper into WhoHub's sponsorship program, which is part of the website content marketing and advertising. The users will vote on the ads that they see and be able to assign the ads of their choosing according to WhoHub's local choice guides that users can opt into from user settings. This will allow users to block ads that they definitely do not want to see and choose to see ads from companies that they routinely shop. This is part of the competitive marketing platform that WhoHub will provide. WhoHub is devised primarily by two people who have needed to be heard for a long time. We saw this as a problem long ago and made a way for this to be resolved through a user merit system, whereby user input is prioritized by its weight of information, and it is then accordingly sent up the chain of command to its proper destination where change can occur. That is, to the right person, persons, group or groups, agencies, businesses, governments, or whoever or wherever the information needs to be. WhoHub's system will constantly improve to ensure it makes it to the right one. And those great ideas that users submit will be rewarded as they should be, because we are all part of a huge system and as such should share both responsibility as well as energy for our efforts to help each other. Dragons, unlike the T-Rex and velociraptors, shed their skin like snakes, and therefore are a symbol of rebirth. Dragons are considered also to be symbols of wisdom, enlightenment, and self-attainment. The green dragon, as seen on the floor, is associated with growth and renewal as a protector of nature and the environment. Dragons come in various colors, which hold special meaning and purpose for each. To the left is a snapshot from Cavetronics.com website, which went down in 2013. It describes some of the positions that are needed initially, focusing on department heads. We need people who can snap it all together. In total, there will be 29 WhoHub administrators and directors, so that there will never be a tie with a 14 to 15 ratio. I assure you I would not be going through all this trouble to hand over so much information all these years if it was not so urgent that even my own life depends on it at this point. And especially now more than ever before with the inflationary cost that is driving us towards homelessness. Yet both my husband and I are disabled, and I can't imagine how we would manage without a home. None of this is fair. So the team that we have at the moment are all volunteers, as we all are in the open source community of scientists, engineers, inventors, technologists, journalists, and more. For years I kept a dream journal, and before I stopped it was hundreds of pages. I still have important dreams, and often, and some carry more weight than others. In my dreams I often communicate with angels, and I can tell by what they're wearing and how they present themselves as to what type of communication is going on. For example, if the angel is wearing jeans and talking a lot, it's usually more like a teaching lesson. However, sometimes on more rare occasions, angels may come to me as messengers, and they always wear white robes, and they present themselves as messengers with a message to deliver. The last time that happened was in 2019, sometime around the end of summer or mid-autumn. In the dream, 3 angels in white robes stood side by side in front of me and facing me, but only the middle messenger angel spoke to me and warned me about the upcoming events, which played out as the pandemic and the lying narratives that came with it. The angel urgently warned me to basically stay on the straight and narrow with my thinking, and to block the false media out of my thinking calculations and basically ignore the news. And I'm glad I did. To continue with the presentation, and without getting too deep into my extensive research into the most important dream that I've ever had, which was the one before 9/11, this section highlights some points which seem to be currently in play in this 5D chess, if that's what you want to call it. There may be some people out there wondering why angels talk to me and not them, but think about it. Some people are more difficult to reach than others, especially when trying to communicate from the great beyond, which isn't that far away. But rather than worry about who can do what, let's work together and network our assets for the greater good. I realize I'm talking about a collective action rather than the rugged individualism that the West seems to hold dear in theory. However, if that worked, then I wouldn't be out of job, and my husband would never have had a massive stroke at 46 years old without health care after serving his country in ways that few humans can imagine, only to be cast out as if he was never there without compensation to all the damage done to his body, mind, and spirit. Also, if hard physical labor could ever make someone rich, my dad would be a billionaire. But he worked until he could not walk, had to retire without savings, and could barely afford his bills on Social Security. So in my address to this nation in Egg-Gnosis, Part 4, God, Who-Hub, and the Future, where I detail a dream I had about 9/11 2 weeks before it happened. I spoke about things that can be done right now to start fixing this country and setting things back on a sane path and progress out of the rotten state we've lived in for far too long. Decades and decades have compounded our problems to the point that we have no choice but to do something drastically different, and I present Who-Hub as that option. Yet from a dragon perspective, I am so disgusted with this world that I would rather ascend from it than deal with the stupidity of abstraction and distortion that comes along with it. And that may be what happens considering the end of the dream as described in the video shown here and available on the channel. I admit I've been hiding the dragons for a while. However, in a previous video, Egg-Gnosis Part 6 on slide 13, I did show off this special one that's shown on the right, which is a signature piece from the AI art bot that seemed to understand my 5D chess moves by choosing to design and highlight the glowing Moldavite Emerald from Heaven gem. This is the meteorite rock used in Egg-Gnosis Part 4, of which video, as much as I can surmise, disrupted a party held by some secret society. From what I hear, it caused quite a stir. It seems significant, and you can pause the video and read about it if you like. But I am merely presenting the evidence gathered, and this is a screenshot from my former website to the left. It is worth mentioning the 9/11 dream portion of my website back then received perhaps the most traffic of all of the website content, and that came from government agencies of all types, including military and educational ISPs. Also, I want to state in advance of the bot chatter, considering the content on this slide, that we are not proponents of nuclear type power for energy or weaponry. Once again, this is a screenshot of previous research, which may be meaningful, but I'm not offering any interpretations or predictions about it. Like the dragons, archons get a bad name. But it's all just propaganda and angular madness. This is an excerpt of some research a friend of mine helped me do on earthboppin.net many years ago on my dream about 9/11. And they offered this Gnostic fragment from Pistis Sophia, Book 1, Chapter 21, where Jesus talks about the Archon gates that we're about to get into and how they are spun around in certain directions, of which the directional angles are important to research and understand and why. And it shows that people are intentionally thrown into madness when they don't understand those things. Just like how God put Adam to sleep to make Eve from his rib, God put the ark's animals to sleep during the flood. The flood represents the primordial waters, the dream matrix, and the membranes of M-theory, where everything exists as a state of memory yet to be activated, awakened, and brought to life or animation. It is a gestational period of pre-programming, just like we talked about in the last video, Egg-Gnosis Part 11. I think this is my favorite slide, showing a heavenly gateway crossing in the stars. The dragons are covered so that the ark can pass through dimensions. Although this may be a simplified graphic example, it's like walking the information over the barrier. The abstracted 5D chess configuration provides the bridge for the dragons to cross undetected. The dragons are like the ferrymen on the river Styx, or the guardian angels escorting souls from one world to the next. Rest assured, we get help in this world. There are many ways of cosmic intervention, and one of them is cosmic rays coming from often the sign of Virgo. And Carl Sagan put forth that theory in 1973. I came across that research when doing research on my dream of 9/11, which showed the star pattern for the Southern Cross. But even back then, I knew that things were inverted, and there seemed to be quite a bit of overlapping patterns with the Northern Cross as well, which is why I looked into Cygnus, the swan. Welcome to the dragon's lair. Leave the door open as you step inside. Today's babbling battle reports take us into the morph worlds to learn how to program consciousness. It is time to explore what it is like to be a dragon, full of caged energy. It is a psychological place of exasperation, exhaustion, and constant torment. The outer world becomes so unbearable, and it creates a split in consciousness to force one to focus inside or go inside, so to speak, to block the world out around intentionally out of self-preservation. This can happen at any age, especially early childhood or whenever psychological trauma is involved. It may be that this happens more often to females, hence it may also be one of the many reasons the legends are about a princess held by a dragon rather than a prince. But in this 5D chess over Unity match, doors could open up other configurations. Black dragons, for instance, are known for vengeance and are especially agitated in transition when shedding their skin, after being so compressed by the events and the endless struggle with a demonic construct, unable to move 1 inch or another, but rather more and more and more compressed like a boa constrictor snake wrapped around. When you get so fed up with the world, your mind seeks ways and paths of escape, or in this case, rejection of reality. And it goes either to the good or to the evil. That's how it functions. That's how it works. And I wish you guys would end this testy experiment, because some days are harder to function through than others. But so far, sheer moxie can survive it. Some may liken this dragonish position as the Kabbalistic forest, which tends to upset and kill most of its visitors. Warriors for the light, it is battle time. Gear up, because we're about to enter dark waters of emotions and the conscious mind. I wanted to show a little extra love on this slide as we leave the established realm of reality and science. Dragons are often keenly aware of the subtle energy fields around them, like the wings of a seraph. To me, the seraph represents the ascension of the princess and the dragon. When the princess cries, the seraph wings are there as comfort. And when she is ready to sing, the dragon breathes fire into the abstraction. The dragon's color signifies its purpose, as I mentioned. The red dragon breathes fire. Dragons are moody creatures as fiery serpents, which are described by the prophet Isaiah as seraphim, the six-winged angels found in Isaiah chapter 6. The seraphim dragons are of a higher order than the angels of this world, as part of the first order of creation, which came before this one, but that gets into another topic. So let's look at the symbols we are using. First the princess, then the dragon, and now the seraph. We can think of each of these symbols as pieces on separate 5D chessboards, yet they are continually linked and dependent upon each other. They communicate in a wide-banded manner. Perhaps Albert Einstein would call it spooky actions at a distance. And sometimes things may look a little frightening, especially at first. Be brave as we journey into the darkness. As a reminder, if God be with us, who can stand against us? And to the psalmist David wrote, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night shines like the light of day. That light acts like a dividing line to separate truth from fiction, fact from lies, and reality from propaganda. It is a process of extraction and then crystallization, as we will discover together as we build our reality for the betterment of all, including dragons. Dragon science works like systems engineering. There is a building process to the conscious structure. The angles are measured and the foundation is laid with four corners as we move through the most fundamental or primary structures in Platonic solids like cubes or cones, and so on. The dragon energy grounds the conscious truths in mortality, the realm of the dead, the land of the shades. In ancient Babylon, they said, "Let us build a tower to heaven with bricks." And they also said, in paraphrasing, "What we put our mind to do, we can succeed." It was the magical intent behind Babylon that got them in trouble, not how they did it. Their intent was to dominate the world with an evil hand and enslave people into one language, one speech, one dialogue, one narrative that only they controlled. That is why Babylon was destroyed, in order to make way for more voices, diversity, new opinions, another perspective, more options, and so on. The bridge is the path through any narrative. The bridge forges forward in truth, and it cuts both ways, like a double-edged sword. This is how God breathed and spoke upon the waters. This is how we wake up in the land of shades, if that is what we want to do. Or else, if we have somewhere else nice to go, we could just let them continue to sleep while we sing our songs as we lull on by. The quirkier and nuanced the content that I put forth, the better, because it really shows up in the abstraction. For example, in part 10 of this series, I used a specific inflection on the sounds of my words, imitating some of the funny ways people say Kabbalist. Instead of saying Kabbalist, I emphasized it with an accent, saying Kabbalist. That nuance showed up clearly later on when I heard it reflected precisely as I had said it later on in the news. Without divulging too much information to the enemy, through my experiences, I see how the construct tries to mirror me in a way. For decades, I have noticed when I put forth a topic and narrative, it gets repeated by others almost immediately or up to a few days at most in these current times. However, in the past, say a couple of decades ago, the construct's dispersal rate may take months or years to shift the narrative. Nowadays, it happens so fast that it could almost be considered a conversation. To be clear, it is not a conversation. Rather, it is more like a signal repeater with only one real speaker, and the message from the source gets distorted intentionally, I believe, and unintentionally by people who are genuinely trying to grasp the concepts themselves. I don't fault the latter, but the former causes me to wonder if there is a human or group behind it all, especially when it comes to technology. If a human group or groups of humans cannot be found responsible for the distortions, then I believe what we're looking at is a type of alien or angelic involvement as the driving force, otherwise described as powers and principalities. Run. That's what we tell the enemies. We have the truth and light in our right hand. Our flaming horns are perky and God's coming through. Anything in the way gets eaten. Don't let it be you. Monitor your emotional responses to your environment, and when things get really nasty, flip the switch on attack. This is essential knowledge at the Dragon School of Education. You gotta ride that beast or it will ride you, but that doesn't account for the give and take in the system. Those decisions are made by real people. The beast, rather, is the distorter, like an information mixer machine. The meaning of the babble could be a lag in the system, the visual defect of time, seemingly paused and fragmented, like the icons on my PC's desktop. So, programming consciousness requires concept mapping the environment, the media, the narratives, the feedback, the lags, and anything that is obviously related, like fitting puzzle pieces together. Some pieces don't belong to the same puzzle or board that you may be working on at the time. Therefore, ignore what doesn't fit into the parameters as discussed in Egg-Gnosis Part 2, Slide 13, in reference to New Testament's Philippians chapter 4, verse 8, concerning whatsoever things are lovely. Think on these things. Don't you just love all this over Unity artwork? If you would be interested in purchasing anything in particular, contact me with the slide number and a brief description of the image or where it's located on the slide. I used transparencies for the screenshot text in order to show off the Cavetronics dimensional art, which, so I heard in the crosstalk, dragons love dearly. So we at Cavetronics R&D Energy built a bridge for programming consciousness. It's carried us this far in order to find you in the abstraction. This 5D chess match endless war is real, or else I wouldn't be doing this. And perhaps that's why you keep me here in my prison, to entertain you. It may take years for one to learn how to stay on the dragon once you find yourself there. The dragon twists and turns and routinely throws passengers off. A newbie fails every time. It is expected, anticipated, and predictable behavior in the morph worlds. I made that term up to name the process common experiences and reasoning as I have described in this section about programming consciousness and how it relates to the dragon aspect of psychology, emotional development, spiritual enlightenment, and self-attainment, which sit at the top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Once things are properly aligned, whether it's individualistic or as a collective construct, the next step or phase is crystal activation, as seen a little bit here. I won't get too deeply about it in this video. I just throw this in as a little cheat sheet for what might be coming up. It is at some point. And if you're interested in learning a little more from the Agile side of it, Agile does talk about crystals and the crystallization process in its philosophy. All this babble is going somewhere, straight into the event horizon. If you haven't already seen the video with scientist Brian Prater about the Who Name, glitch science, and the event horizon, I recommend it for anyone experiencing the dark night of the soul or just wondering what the heck is going on. It may be like those stars flashing off and then back on again repeatedly, which Prater discusses in that video wherein he described 3 types of event horizon and what those experiences are like. Also, it is worth noting that I keep hearing that we're approaching a black hole, or rather it's coming for us. Either way, Prater says it's not something we have to worry about now or for a long time. So I'm putting those aspects out there for your consideration, but I am not making a personal judgment about what is happening, other than to say I am definitely experiencing a synchronicity overload that has not stopped since late last year. To me, it feels like a timer or alarm clock going off, and I don't know if it's personal, worldwide, or both. Could the end times mean the end of time itself? I don't know, but I could use a vacation. Either way, you can know for sure it is the end times when the fairies and dragons have come out of hiding for all to see. Let me put it this way. Feed the people, feed the sheep, and the dragons will go back into hiding. Enough is enough. Put an end to the endless. What if we get Trump back? So what? It will only be for another 4 years, but after that we will have to address the same issues again. So let me ask you, are you thoroughly done testing your theories and questions if God exists and which religious and scientific ideas are correct? I hope the answer is yes on all accounts, because I am tired of waiting for a better world, and I know that my voice speaks for many who hold that same opinion. Can we tame the beast and find our common ground to move forward? Or is this a rescue mission from planet Earth? Right now we have a working world, but it is nearly collapsed. And we've been working on borrowed time for decades. And this is the end of the line right here, right now. It could be a beautiful world if we could get along without so much fighting about which one of our opinions is best. Instead, we can take it out to a vote within WhoHub polling and find out how the collective feel about things in an organic decision-making network. The biggest problem we have is the lack of a unifying platform of communication and shared ideas. Instead, we are spread and divided up through controlled media. We need a place to communicate, but the social media platforms we have use methods that cut off real-time chatter and relevant conversations into bubbles and chopped up snippets of chat. If we cannot communicate, then we're surely doomed, like castaways on a remote island, every man unto themselves, fighting powers and principalities barging in our doors, whether those doors be physical or mental. We collectively have to tame the beast and grow up fast, which is the reason I do what I do and offer this divine wisdom for free. This is my sacrifice and payment to the evil inclination of this world, which listens just to mock me. And on the other hand, this is my gift and honor to save my brothers and sisters in arms in this holy war of creation. This is a bonus slide showing the answer to the questions that are posed in the videos for cosmic Easter eggs, baskets, numbers, 9, 10, and 11. For anybody who wondered, those Dragon Balls were on the 6th slide or 6th image through the baskets. I wasn't numbering the slides back then, so you just have to count. The Dragon Ball was made using a special mixture into the AI concoction of Brian David Prater's over unity formula as usual, as well as regular artistic instructions. And for the magical spice, I added a remnant of a holy finding image, and I sent those communications out in advance as a bridge, which was established to deliver this media at the right time. So if there's anything we've learned today, is that dragons don't like to stay in the box. And when they're mistreated, everyone suffers from it. But being humble and peaceful creatures, like the princess, dragons can be your friend or foe. It's your choice. These dragons enjoyed coming out to play, and we at Cavetronics hope you enjoyed them and were able to take some valuable information from this presentation. Remember to take care of yourself, mind your surroundings, and don't believe the controlled narratives in the mainstream. I hope we can come together soon to make America and the world great again, but in the meantime, the dragons are released to war. Let us be quick to end the suffering. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.